Let me see.
Oh, that was the wrong one. It was supposed to be. It was supposed to be this one. It's supposed to be this one right here. It's focus. That's the one thing that really helped me see that reality of going full time was focus.
For sure.
And not just focus, relentless focus. And all right, so why I say focus, I actually had a mentor of mine, and actually I mentioned her in the last part, like she has had probably the single most, she's probably the single greatest influence in a sense of just my mindset and how I attack, my business came from her. She's an attorney and she ain't hurting for money, you know what I mean? But she saw a lot of me early on, but she also saw some areas of opportunity for me where she was like, hey, if you really take the time to focus, you know what I mean? Because I was that, which are like a lot of other artists, you know what I mean, or a lot of creators really. Like I was doing design, I was producing music, I was writing music, I was doing photography, I was doing motion design, I was doing branding, I was working a 9 to 5, I was signed to a label, I was selling merch, and that list probably
wearing all the hats, bro.
I was doing everything, and she was just like, when you really take the time to dial in and focus, on that one thing that is really that you can identify is really going to bring the most amount of whatever you're looking for in your life. That's when you're going to see the success and what you're actually after. It's that idea, and it's I think it's a cultural thing, but it's also a creative thing where we just got our hands in a lot of stuff, and we think in order to rise to the top and get to where we need, we got to have our hands and spin all these plates and stuff like that. And it really wasn't until I gave myself the permission. This is what I invite all of our listeners to do, like giving yourself the permission to stop doing, 6 things at once. You know what I mean? It's like identify what is that one thing, that main thing, you know what I mean, that, you just have the assumption could potentially like change your situation. What is that? And give yourself some time to actually, be in it and focus on it to see, yourself accelerate in that thing. Or potentially, not, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, but like, how does focus, kind of resonate? Like when that whole idea of focus comes up and what we do, like, and with it helping towards the full-time agenda, like what does that look like in your world?
Focus.
Or what thoughts around it?
I would say focus is the driving force for all of it. I mean, because the lack of it, you won't see any scaling, you won't see anything grow. And I think focus is, it's the thing that keeps the wheels turning in regards to your success, whatever that might look like. And then focus. What do you want to focus on? And I think a lot of times we had to be the cameraman. We had to be the videographer. We had to be the designer because we had to focus on something, and we wanted to be artists or whatever have you. And we felt like the need was to be all those things. But the most growth that I've seen in my life is when I just focused in on myself, or yourself being an artist, or yourself being a videographer, whatever that might look like. Because you can then put all of your time and energy into that. So I think focus is extremely important. I don't think.
Tough. Like, not to cut you too, I feel like it's tough to talk about too, because I don't want people to check out when we say focus, because it's just like, oh, of course you got to focus. You know what I mean? Like, what is that? How's that really? Because it's
what does that look like?
And I want to dig into that. And
but
I will say the single, like, I'm always making these very definitive statements, so you'll probably hear a bunch of
yeah.
But one of the probably high on the list that helped me to go full time was focus, and what focus looked like was like really saying, all right, I'm not going to be doing shows. I'm not going to be trying to run up my Spotify. I'm not going to be, trying to grow my fan base. Like, I'm not going to be doing all these, because they're all individual strategies in and of themselves. but trying to like prioritize, like, what is that one thing? And for me, it was, licensing.
Right.
I went very deep, you know what I mean? And what I love about it is that it just gave me the permission to, really stand by my yeses and no's, or even know what to say yes to and what to say no to, because it was like, if it wasn't, supporting that goal of trying to get my music and TV and film, I'm not adding it to the plate. And I gave myself a timeline as well, in which we're going to talk about in a minute. But
yeah,
let's maybe I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
yeah, no, and that's great for them, for takeaways. Like, focus looks like exactly what you said, and answering the question of what it is that you actually want. I think you answered that, and you went only for that. And I think that that's what focus should look like. Erase all the noise, and put all your eggs in that.
Yeah, and it feels, I think, uncomfortable sometimes, because I think we're just trained to, well, I gotta kind of do it all, especially as an artist. You know what I mean? It's like, well, who's going to be doing all of the other things that needs to happen? So I do want to get into some of the questions that might come up when some of the questions you may have, some questions you maybe didn't think to ask, but I was just ideating through this, and I came up with 4 in particular. It was like, well, how do you know what to actually focus on that's going to bring like some real results, and you're not just spinning your wheels? Also, just how do you do this thing? Like, if you are focusing, like, how do you do this as an indie with limited resources? So you might be focusing on one thing, but you have supplemental things that maybe need to support the one thing that you're focusing on. So how do you incorporate that? Also, what if you put in, so 2 other things, like, what if you put all this time and focus into this thing and it bombs? You know what I mean? It's like, now I'm out 6 months or a year or 5 years or whatever it is to dedicate this thing. Like, what do you do with that when you've chosen to only focus? Like, you've been very exclusive. I'm only focusing on this. And then, which this last question kind of goes into, is like, how long, is too long to try and build something? Like, how do you know when to pivot if you are focusing on something? Like, is it just until you hit a grave, or is there some cutoff time, or we get, like, is it measurable? How can we? Maybe we can unpack those. Maybe question by question. The first one I had was, how do you know what to focus on? And the things that come to mind for me was, I wrote this down, just going back to your goals and your definition of success, what we talked about, like that. It's really like everything kind of starts from there. Like, I wouldn't move too far in your music journey without taking some time, like what Frank was saying, in the last episode, like, write it down, like, make the vision plain, dream big, you know what I mean? Reverse engineer, like, ask other people, like, get enough data to have an educated, as much as you can, educated system, or educated awareness of just like what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go. I mentioned just interviewing people that you see as successful in areas that you're interested in. Like, maybe we could talk about that, because that was something that was really pivotal for me, because, like, when I was interested in licensing, I was just trying to talk to anybody and everybody who was remotely close to it. Was that the same for you, or what?
I'm kind of still like that.
You would say, bro. Same. So I said, interviewing people that you see as successful in areas that you're interested in, because it could be a new venture, and interviewing those people will expose whether or not you're actually, still you still want to pursue that particular direction, because they could expose some realities that you're like, oh, I didn't realize it was like that.
100%. That might not be what I want. Ooh, you hear some horror stories.
It's like, I didn't know that I had to, when we started, doing real estate and stuff like that. Like, I didn't know I had to, build all these systems, and I had to hire a project manager, and I had to, like, we were doing all these renovations and stuff like that. I was on site, you know what I mean? Because it was our first one, and it was just a mess. We had to fire a contractor. It was just, it was. We didn't do that, because I told it. I learned my lesson with doing home repairs. Like, I'm not the home repair guy. I'm handy if I need to be, but
if you have to.
We tried to paint, like, when we got our first house. I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna paint the inside, the house, the walls, and all this kind of stuff. We started with one room. We did that one room. I said, I'm not painting any more walls in this house or in any other house ever again for as long as I live.
There's somebody that can do this. It's
Yeah,
not me.
I will get my income up and pay the person to go fix this thing.
Facts.
I'm
I
not
feel
the
that.
DIY.
Yeah.
But another thing I was saying, how do you know what to focus on? Again, just getting educated about that thing so that you can make a educated decision of whether or not it's for you or not. But watching trainings, doing free webinars will help you know and see what it is that you may want to gravitate to. And the last thing I put on here is just pick. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just gotta lock in and just not let analysis paralysis be the you know what I mean? Like, you just got to give yourself permission at the end of the day, because these decisions typically and usually aren't the end of the world. And, you'll know if it's not working for you, and it's okay, you know what I mean, to try something and then pivot and try something else and even potentially come back to it. You know what I mean? Like I've done that. I've done things where I tried it, liked it, said I would never do it again, got away from it, and I did it again and just did it at a different way. You know what I mean?
You're better when you do it the next time. Yeah, for 100%. I'll piggyback off that too. I feel like I'm a big write it down, like not on your phone, not in notes. I'm talking about old school, grab a pen and paper and write. If you can do it in one sentence, specifically about your journey as career path or whatever you're trying to do, what would your ideal life look like? Just write it out. Just say, this is what you would do when you wake up. This is what you would hope you were going to do. I was hoping I'd do an interview. I hope my music is here. And that right there, if you can, I promise you, if you're listening to this, grab a pen and paper and just do it, and you'll be surprised. One, either you don't know what the heck you want to do, or you're more in line with your plan than you think you are, and you're able to write it down. And if you're asking, what should I focus on? You'll literally write it down, and your dream is on the paper, and you can just chase that specifically. Now, that is a broad brush of that doesn't equal execution. You know what I'm saying? You got to go out there, and execution isn't, it might have success, it might not. But just in terms of that first question, writing it down would be great.
Love it. Yeah. So the second question I had on there is, how do you do this as an independent artist with limited resources? Because that's a real thing. It's like, and I feel like every creative also has these grandiose visions of like how to execute their art, and the reality of just maybe not having the resources to be able to do it. So how do you wrestle with that reality? And some of the things I've wrote down, we talked about a little earlier. I do think sometimes it's budgeting, the resources that you do have better, because, like I mentioned earlier, we were bringing in a lot of money, at one point in time, but it didn't feel like it because we didn't have the proper grasp of what our money was actually doing. And we didn't have as dialed in of a game plan of what we were going to do with our money. And so it just told us what to do versus the other way around. Right. And I do think locking in your personal budget with, you got a significant other, y'all lock in. Like I do highly recommend Dave Ramsey, because he has some very practical ways of how to, do that. And another thing I would say is focusing in on one area at a time is something that that came up, where if sometimes we think we need more resources, but sometimes that, what's perpetuating that thought is all of the things that we feel like we have to do, you know what I mean? And that's where I think it goes back to, like, once you realize what it is that you have to focus on, you start to reverse engineer, and also being really honest, like, what do I need to do? And do I actually need, is there another way, a more cost efficient way in this season to be able to execute this thing? It doesn't always have to be the latest and greatest. You can get scrappy, and it's okay to kind of do that. If it's, if it's still getting you the results that you're after, why not? Why not? Yeah. Another thing I put on here is, if you, and I'm the king of this, like, I feel like I've always been very resourceful throughout my whole career, like, making myself look maybe even bigger than what I was. And I just leverage, some of my skill sets. But all that to say is just like, being resourceful what you have, you're all uniquely gifted. But I will say leveraging like tech and automations can
yeah.
talk to me
100%.
because you sound
You
like
hitting the nail on the head. Go ahead.
because we were at the top. I mean, before we started rolling, and actually when we started, I was talking about Claude and the and again, everybody has a different opinion about AI, but I just look at technology as a help for being able to add more value and doing things more efficiently and saving time to do the things that I'm most fitted to do, and also gives me time to spend with the people that I most love and do the things that I really want to do.
Yeah.
So, but also why I say tech is that, if you're a, entrepreneur, music artist, and you yourself are a business, there's a lot of, damn near free resources out there that will save you a ton of time and just make execution of whatever it is. So, you're trying to, like we're talking now in our ecosystem of like how to leverage Claude, which is like, a $20 membership at a conservative route. We have the $100 one, but even ChatGPT, you know what I mean? It's like you can do it for $20 a month, wherever. They're really helpful, but you can integrate different agents to deploy and do things on your behalf. Like I ran Claude last night and it was, working while I was sleeping. I woke up and the task I had it do was done.
It was working. It was
and
crazy.
it's not that expensive, and and those things are worth time. Worth your time to set up once to be able to work for you ongoing. So I'm like the king of systems and automations to get to buy back your time. Even, case in point, like for the community relentless that we run, like, and I hear this a lot. People say like, man, it seems like you got a lot going on. Like you got an agency, you're an artist, you know what I mean? It's like you're a father, you got a whole community. Like you guys are,
100%.
It's just a lot in my world. But for me, it doesn't really feel like a lot. And maybe just because it's my, it's my journey. So it's my tolerance. My tolerance level is different. But also I've gained more of my time back, even though we do more. And it's because of the systems that we built on the back end. Like we use ClickUp to do all of our task management for our team. And there's tons of automations that run. We build written SOPs for the day-to-day activities that need to happen, like within our community, so much so that my involvement really with the community is showing up once a week to teach, you know what I mean? And doing our monthly calls. So I'm not really in a lot of the day-to-day. Like I engage within the community, but that's like 5 to 10 minutes out of the day. And then I spend like 2 hours talking to the students, but everything that makes the community run, we built a system for. So I still have time, with my family. And so there's a lot of other cases, like even our virtual writing camps that we do, Frank, you know what I mean? Like that whole back end process is a system. Crazy. Like so much so like Frank, I brought Frank in to actually be, to help A&R some of the records that we're doing for our catalog. And so we got like 20, how many, it's like 10 artists, 10 producers. Which in and of itself is a lot. It's like you dealing with that many personalities, people, yada, yada. But we have a system where we bring everybody together and they're all cooking up, and there's a system for reviews and da-da-da. So much so, like this last camp that we ran, like this was the first time we wanted to test, and everybody knows is like the goal was for this not to be the Deraj show. Like we wanted to figure out a way for this thing to run, you know what I mean? And put everybody in position. And literally I hadn't heard any song. I wasn't a part of any of the conversations until like maybe a couple of weeks ago. And we were running this camp for like a month and a half. But it was so much so that, everybody was in position. Everybody's doing what they wanted to do and what they love to do. And it worked for everybody. And me as a business owner, I was able to get my team to be able to like work in a way that was, efficient, streamlined, and produce some fire records. You know what I mean? Like, so systems, automation, tech, leverage it because
everything.
You are more, you have more resources than you realize sometimes. And the last two things I put, sometimes you can barter services as well. So you don't always have like value looks different. Bartering is a thing. And then I would say offloading, certain responsibilities. So if you're used to writing and producing, pick one and offload the other one.
And let somebody else handle it.
Yeah, man.
And that's what I was gonna say. In terms the automation. I mean, especially as a business owner, it looks one way, and then automating it, maybe just as an artist, you can automate your emails. You don't got to worry
Yes.
about sending out those emails all by yourself
Yeah.
individually. I mean, you should tailor them. Don't get me wrong. You
Yeah,
should definitely
absolutely.
be a part of it. But as an artist, you can automate what you're going to do for that day. You can automate your calendar, everything. Those are amazing tools to use to just be better.
Yeah.
And then for me, I would say collaborating
Talk to him.
is the thing, bro. Like if you're, and I think oftentimes we look at, dang, I wish. There's one guy that I love watching his stuff, Jacob Owens. He's a videographer. And it's like, dang, I want him to shoot my stuff. Well, there's Jeff
Jeff
at your
Owens.
church,
Right.
Jeff Owens at your church that's trying to learn the camera, and he needs you to, so that way he can start his business just as
Yeah.
much as you need content. Don't
Yeah.
shoot that high. There's a lateral person that you
And
see
they're
them reach
good
this
too.
point, and they're
And they're
good. You know
good.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? They're good, and they're
Yeah.
learning at the craft. And so it's like, you know what? You could leverage. You could be that body for them to get work and collaborate laterally instead of trying to look up all the time. Because if you
Yeah.
don't got the funds,
Yeah.
you ain't got the funds yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yet is the
Yeah.
word. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So collaborate like that. You'll be
Yeah.
surprised, like how
Yeah.
far you can get with just, hey, call Jeff instead of Jacob.
Hit them IG hashtags too, because you'll find people who are doing design, doing branding,
Oh
doing
yeah,
producing, whatever, and they may not have a huge following. They may be starting out. I've done that early. I even did that now. There's
yeah.
people who just aren't that far along, and they're just looking for opportunities and outlets to be able to grow their craft, and it's a
Facts.
win-win.
And they be people that study it too, like they're in it. So
Right.
trust that.
Yeah. Let's try to get through these next two questions. I do want to get to our news segments. I love this. We always end up ranting a lot more, but this is
it's all good.
It's what it's built for, man. That's how you know. You know what I mean? We do what we're supposed to do. We just lose track of time.
Fact. Yeah.
Last two questions that probably come up with, trying to figure out focus. This third one was, what if I put all this time and focus into it and it just, it tanks, it bombs. And that's a real thing, because I don't think
that's
anybody.
Real.
I'm one of them ones. Like I hate inefficiency. I hate putting all this energy to something like that. And I think that's why I was frustrated so much at the top of the hour when I was talking about my Claude situation. My anxiety didn't come from the fact that it was taking. Well, actually, no, it did come from. It was taking too long. And like the expectation I had, like this thing is supposed to save me time, and now I'm actually wasting more. Not wasting more time. Yeah. It's taking more time to get this thing, locked in. So I get it. You know what I mean? Like I'm fierce around my time. You know what I mean? And so this one hits home for me. But when I hear this question, the majority, or excuse me, what mainly comes to mind is like this is a little bit more of a a mindset thing, for me, because, if you're trying to get to a place, and rather if you're trying to build a business, you need to get very comfortable that things aren't always going to go as planned. And so you're going to embark in some stuff that, is going to feel like a waste of time. And
yes, always.
And it's to be seen, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you might end up, and I almost kind of feel like there is really, and I put an asterisk by this, but it's almost like there is no wasted time, because I do feel like there are things that add to your journey, and without you wouldn't be who you are, and wouldn't process the way you do. And we have a bad relationship with perceived failure and stuff like that in general. But you do have to get comfortable with investing time in things that you do not know on the other side of this is really going to pan out the way you thought. You do your due diligence as much as you can, kind of like what old boy was talking about, Max, at the top of the hour. But you gotta run that like risk, because that's just the, like we as entrepreneurs, business builders, like we are the ones that take the risk so that other people can have a steady paycheck. You know what I mean? It's like we go through the trenches. We have to consider all of the variables and take the L's, but still have to figure out. Like this is a quote from, I think it's Jim Rohn, and I love it. It's this idea that business leaders don't always make the right decisions. but we make our decisions right. And so, you know, it's the art of the pivot. You feel me? Like
the art of the pivot is
the art of the pivot, man.
Yeah, man.
You got to know how to make a decision, not, you know, let analysis paralysis and fear at the end of the day like prohibits you from just making a move. But when you make the move, in the middle of it, you might realize, this ain't what I thought it was going to be. How are we going to recover from this? Like that's I think the conversation that needs to happen within, you know, entrepreneurs, you know, business owners, you know, creatives, independent artists as they're navigating through these things, because, you know, that's just that is just something that's inevitable. Like you're going to come across stuff that just doesn't go as you plan. And so
as you plan it.
That's why I say it's more of a mindset thing. Just get used to, you know, putting time and focus into something and it not panning out, but knowing how, and that's why I say it's a mindset, like knowing how to recover and say like, you know what did I learn from this? That's the win. And now I'm more equipped to make even, you know, more targeted decisions down the road. So,
and not to sound cliche, like if you're not finding purpose in it any longer, it's probably time to pivot. I seen a quote where it said, some people quit early and other people stay too long. And I think that's the balance of grinding it out. Like if it's not making you happy and if you're not finding purpose in it, then it's probably something that you should pivot. I remember you probably remember the movie where the coach, he has they're playing football and he has this dude do a bear crawl with his friend on his back from the 1 yard line. And the coach is like, come on, you got this. And he's at the 1 yard line. And he's like, the goal is just to get to the 50. And I think in the movie, the kid keeps listening to his coach, just the positive reinforcement. And when he stops, he's at the 100 yard line from touchdown to touchdown.
So he didn't even notice that he didn't
even notice he blew past the 50. And I think a lot of times we're in this pain and the current situations, current circumstance. But then when you look back, you be like, bro, like if you would have asked me where I wish I would have got 5 years ago, I wish I got to the 50. I'm at the 100. You know what I'm saying? And I think that perspective is huge.
That's a bar right
whether
there,
to
dog.
quit or not.
Come on, man. You know he good for it. He good for it every now and then.
Sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes. But yeah, man, don't quit, bro.
Yeah, which actually goes into our final question. How long is too long, you know, to try and build something? You know what I mean? And you touched on it a little bit. Like I think there's some helpful considerations with that question, because that's a reality. Like I'm not a, you know, a masochist or somebody who's just like, dog, you just, you know, grind into, you know, it show itself, which in one sense I am, in another sense, that's why I think all these quotes and motivational stuff you hear on IG, yada, like there's always two sides to it, and I think they can equally be valid, because on one sense, I will absolutely tell you, like, grind hard, put it in, like go further than what you think you should. And then on the other side, it's like, well, there is a season to reevaluate and pivot, because maybe it's not doing what you initially thought.
Right.
And sometimes it's mysterious when that actually, you know, when you need to do that, because it's almost like you don't know what the perfect time is to pivot usually.
Right.
But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in the chat you guys can give some thoughts around that. But some things that I put down to consider is, I think it's okay to set a timeline to some of these decisions. Like if you're
for sure
going a new direction or something that you're considering, like when I started this journey with licensing, I said, hey, I'm giving myself 6 months, you know what I mean? And we're going to see where it gets us. But I gave myself a solid 6 months to only do this thing and focus.
Yeah.
And I think that allowed me to really, which was one of my other points, of having an honest estimation. Like, am I actually giving it my best? You know what I mean? Like, am I giving it all that I can, because I'm not as divided, you know what I mean, going into this new endeavor. And I think that's just even in your considerations of, is it time to pivot, just saying like, yo, have I really given it my best? And also not comparing myself in that, like my best, not Frank's best, not, you know, somebody else you're seeing on IG's best. Like, what is the gut check, when you're giving your best, like
Right.
audit
100%.
that. And if you're like, I'm giving my best, I've done checked all of the boxes, maybe it's time to have some conversations of, is it now the time to pivot? You know what I mean? I do think if you set some KPIs, like some key performance, indicators of like, what are the metrics that make this, this new endeavor worth it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to, hit X amount of revenue. I'm trying to hit X amount of followers, hit X amount of streams, or X amount of shows, or whatever it is, or X amount of engagement. Also, like, what are those KPIs? Data doesn't lie. You know what I mean? It really can help. And I would encourage everybody to set those, KPIs, or just like tangible metrics that you can look at. Like, I want 10,000 followers by May. That's very specific, and you can measure that. You know what I mean? And that helps you, know where it is that you stand against the goals that you had set. And over time, you now have a report of, all right, that's why we got all these bar graphs and all this other kind of stuff to see, like, well, where are we trending? Are we trending upward? Are we, are we neutral? Are we going downward? Are we okay with this? Do we have more in us to kind of see if this bell curve can, just stay up instead of, going down? Like, so setting, having some clear data points, auditing your results, and then kind of piggybacking on what you were saying, that what I talked about at the top was checking in on yourself. Like, are you still enjoying this thing? Because that's important. You don't, like, we get into this thing because we enjoy, we want to be able to make a living from our art, at the end of the day. And there's going to be times where, it's not always going to be as ideal as you think, you know what I mean? But more times than not, like, there's harder days than others, but I can, 100% say I wouldn't trade what I do for a living for anything. Like, I love doing this.
100%.
Yeah, I enjoy this on a day to day, even with, the frustrations and the variables. They all build character and they compound, but I love it. I have no plans of quitting.
No complaints. Same here, bro. And just to piggyback off the KPIs, bro, like, and going back to all the previous points, just seeing how far you came, like, and it all compounds into the momentum that we're speaking about of being an artist, and when to quit. I think seeing those KPIs, when you look back and you be like, my goal was X amount, and you realize, well, hey, I crossed that 3 months ago, but you're still feeling like you're stuck. You can look at these things and say, oh, I'm clearly moving forward.
That's really
and then
good.
At the same time, on the flip side, if you're like, okay, I feel like I'm here, but you see it moving backwards, you can make adjustments.
Yes.
So it's just good to do that and take inventory of your life and your goals.
Which I feel like 100%. that's probably because we always try to have like a practical takeaway segment, and so I feel like that might be yours, but maybe you have something different.
Yeah, no,
like
that's it.
Yeah,
practically just take inventory of your goals and where you are with your life right now. If you're an indie artist watching this, I think it would be smart to do KPIs. Give yourself a timeline, stick to it, and then look back at it in 90 days and then make adjustments from there.
Yeah,
that's literal. Just follow that. That would be an absolute practical takeaway.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add as far as my takeaway is, I really want to create like that budgeting framework. So I feel like it unlocked something for me even at this stage of my career, because it wasn't very long ago when we implemented this, but it was just super like transformative for just how we handle our day to day, and it's giving me so much peace. Like I'll brag about Mercury so much, the bank that we use. To my wife, and she even loves it now.
I'm about to go look it up. I haven't heard, so you put me on.
Yeah, Mercury is fire. And then also, again, like auditing where you are, and just picking one thing to focus on. Even like that, maybe this would be a good reinforcer. We're talking about focus. Pick one thing that we've talked about to focus on that area. You know what I mean, for this week. And maybe that is budgeting.